Hi, everyone. My name is Andrea.
And I'm MJ.
There was a little delayed reaction there, MJ. Did you forget your name? Second
I was
pod, she
thinking
forgot
about
her
it.
name. Yeah.
Hey.
Well, I'm so excited you guys are back for the second episode of the Lapsdown podcast. Hopefully you liked the first, and if you didn't, maybe you're just here as like a watcher, and that's also fine. I'm cool with that.
That
like,
counts.
whatever
Yeah.
floats your boat. But we are coming to you today. We are going to learn, we're going to laugh, we're going to love, okay? But there is going to be some learning, but like good learning, okay? We all need to learn a little bit about the charter system for IndyCar. We're going to talk a little bit about NASCAR playoffs, and some people had some questions about how the playoffs work, so we'll briefly cover that. I'm also going to crack open my dream of being a lawyer and try to cover for you guys the lawsuit that's happening against NASCAR. And we'll also throw in some just fun, some little giggles, some little laughs. Does that sound like a plan to you, MJ?
Yeah, that sounds like a plan to me.
Well, MJ is going to be our professor today. She has done the research on the IndyCar charter system. You were saying that it's hard to figure out what's going on with it because IndyCar doesn't really seem to be explaining it well to folks in the simplest of terms.
Most of the information I found about the charter system was not from IndyCar themselves. It was from journalists or just like other IndyCar content creators who have done the work of putting it together. IndyCar, in my opinion, is very consistently putting out like zero information on what's happening, but that's an issue. That's an issue for another time.
Yeah, they're like, you know what? Honestly, we're a little confused as well. So like, we'll try to minimize the amount of info we put out just in case it's wrong or whatevs. You know?
Yeah, it gives them some.
They're
wiggle
hedging their
room.
bets.
So
yeah,
they're like, let's see how you guys react to this, and then we'll decide what the actual final verdict is.
So from what I understand, this is the first charter system in IndyCar, correct?
In IndyCar, yes, correct.
Yeah. But, like, it is a normal-ish thing for other motorsport series. And it's basically, in the simplest of terms, deciding how many teams can exist with how many cars and how many people are going to get to be on track at each race. Simply.
Kind of. Like, yes and no. Yes,
Okay.
let's just jump right into it. I'm going to do my best. I specifically didn't go to school to be a teacher because I was really nervous about teaching, so everyone just kind of bear with me for a minute. So, the IndyCar charter system, and I'm more so going to talk about things that would be important for, like, an average IndyCar consumer. I think there's a lot of details that just, like, simply do not matter if you're just a viewer. In my opinion. I think the easiest way to describe it in the way that I like other people describing it is it's kind of like giving each of these teams their own like franchise, like in other sports. It gives them something of value. It gives them an asset that they can create equity in and whatever, what have you. But so there are 25 charters and they are awarded to the 25 full-time entries from last year who would have qualified for the leader circle. So just to break it down, there are 3 Penske charters, 3 Chip Ganassi charters, 3 Andretti charters, 3 Arrow McLaren charters, 3 RLL charters, 2 Juncos Hollinger, 2 Dale Coyne, 2 Ed Carpenter, 2 AJ Foyt, and 2 Meyer Shank. Those are your 25 charters.
Okay.
Are you
Those
with me?
people, locked, loaded, done deal.
Absolutely. They have charters. And then what you get with a charter, basically you get a guaranteed starting spot in all races, excluding the Indy 500.
Yeah, because that's the one that, like, things kind of are a little more squishy because people not with a charter will want to compete in the Indy 500 because they'll have all these, like, sponsors and everything, and people want to be seen at the Indy 500. So that one's a little squishier. But this is for all those other races that go into the IndyCar championship as a whole.
Yeah. There was also the whole Indy 500 thing was really contentious. Originally, the charters were going to guarantee a spot in the Indy 500, but if you know anything about the kart IRL days, this was kind of like a huge issue because kart, the kart teams basically weren't allowed, like they weren't guaranteed charter spots or entry spots into the Indy 500. I'm getting all my words mixed up.
Yeah, no, but I follow.
We're struggling. Once again, not a teacher.
But once again, you're not the only one struggling. IndyCar themselves are also struggling.
That's true. That's true. So, I'm struggling for free.
Yeah, you're struggling and you didn't even create it.
I'm doing this for free. But, yeah, so they used to do the guaranteed spots for the Indy 500. It was kind of a shit show. We're not doing that right now. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if it did come about in the future. But for right now, no guaranteed spots.
Well, because, like, if they are trying to create a value to these teams by being in the charter system, the biggest value to sponsors is to be racing in the Indy 500. And if there's a chance that can't happen, that does a little bit put, like, a tiny bit of a ding, probably, on the value of sponsoring a team for the IndyCar season, because there's no guarantee that your logo will be played on the Indy 500. But there's a risk you take, I guess, as a sponsor. You still have all the other races of the year that your logo will be shown.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. As a sponsor, you kind of have to decide if you want to be a part of the entire series or if you just want to be a part of, like, the biggest racing spectacle.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. But, so of those 25 charters, those 25 charters are the ones who are going to be competing in the leader circle. If you are an unchartered entry, you are not competing in the leader circle. And just a reminder for the leader circle, it is the top 22 entries in the leader circle. They get $1 million of prize money to put towards their team for the next year.
Period.
So that's staying the same. I don't love that. I think that's the one part of this charter system that I really can't get behind. I think they need to open up. I don't know. I think they need to open it up to everybody. I also don't love how if you were in the top 22, you all get the same amount of prize money. So, like, first
that doesn't
place...
seem... Yeah.
It just feels silly to me. Like, first place gets the same amount of money as 22nd place, and it's only $1 million, which I know it's not like a... I know IndyCar isn't
that's
like a
really basically
series.
Yeah, that's basically like literally pennies.
Yeah.
In the scheme
Roger
of
Penske,
how much they spend.
Yeah, absolutely. Roger Penske is simply not putting the cash out there, but I guess that's an issue for another time. That's an issue for Roger. He can figure that out.
So when we're talking about teams that are competing but don't have a charter, the one that I'm thinking of is what is the dealio with Prema Racing, because they're joining the IndyCar season this coming year, but they don't have a charter, correct?
Yeah, correct. They have no charters. It's not, besides not being allowed in the leader circle, it's not really going to affect them because a part of the charter system agreement is that only 27 cars will be allowed to start each race, and that is kind of like a spacing issue. Like,
you can only fit so many people on the track.
Yeah, well, in, like, Toronto, they don't have enough room for pit stalls. Like, they're like, we can have 27 pit stalls safely. Any more than that, it's going to be an issue. So, this year's not going to be an issue because there are only 27 cars, like, qualifying in general. But in the future, if, like, we were to add a couple more cars, those last 4 non-chartered cars would have to fight for those last 2 remaining spots in the race.
Yeah, so right now, by default, they will get to compete because there's nobody else that will be filling those non-charter spots. But idea being in the future, that could create a little bit of some spicy drama on, like, qualifying day or something, because it'll be like, you literally did not qualify well enough to even race on Sunday. You're done for the weekend. Pack it up.
Right. Which, I don't know, could be kind of... I think that'd be kind of exciting, if I'm being honest. One of the best parts of the Indy 500... Yeah, best part of Indy 500 is the bump day. I love that. I love a bump. It'll be interesting to see how that works. But, yeah, that's
so
kind
what
of
I'm
what you need to know about
So what I'm confused about is, like, does that kind of create a hierarchy of future like drivers seats in IndyCar? Because like if you are like Callum Ilott, for example, and you're going to be racing for a non-chartered team, again, this year won't be a big deal, but in the future it will kind of create like a, well, I'm a chartered team driver, that's a non-chartered team driver, so I'm guaranteed to show up every Sunday and race, but you got to fight for it. It kind of almost creates a hierarchy of like the value of the seats as drivers in a way, I would imagine.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's kind of the point of this is like creating those franchises. Like if you were to sell one of the like Ed Carpenter cars last year, it's there's no value in that Ed Carpenter car because anyone can enter anyways and still be guaranteed the same amount of whatever.
Yeah.
But now that that's a chartered car, even if that car, I don't know, not having good seasons or anything, it still holds value because of being able to qualify for every race, being able to enter in the leader circle. So yeah, these charters they're going to be adding value, and I think that's kind of what IndyCar needed. But it'll be interesting to see as new drivers come in, as new teams hopefully eventually come in, just how that kind of affects the dynamic between the teams.
And I guess like the best way that I thought about like this intrinsic value that will be placed on the teams just by having this charter, it kind of reminds me in F1, you can be a really shit team in F1, but your team is still worth like millions of dollars because there's only 20 cars on that track. And like there has been like, oh, is Alpine for sale? Like that discussion. If Alpine is for sale, I bet you they'll get a lot of money for it because like there are other people that want to get in on F1 now, but there's only 20 spots. There was some like thought that maybe that's why they didn't want to let Andretti in, because once you have 22 cars, the value is then split amongst more folks. But at the end of the day, there is just an intrinsic value to owning an F1 team because other people want to get in on it, and you have one of the coveted spots and you can sell it to the highest bidder, and you're more likely to get more money than if there was 100 F1 cars. If that makes sense. Absolutely. That's how I thought of it. And I think that same logic now kind of a little bit applies to IndyCar.
Yeah. I mean, it's limiting supplies, what it's doing, and it's hopefully creating demand. But
hell yeah.
Yeah.
My economics minor right now. I'm like, y'all ever heard of a little supply and demand? You guys ever heard of that? So ultimately, like, that's some pretty boring-ish, I'm not gonna lie, you know, but I do think it is a direction that's showing that IndyCar is putting some thought into their future. They're wanting to like grow the sport, and like I am curious if in the future we will see IndyCar be able to reach the levels of success of like F1 or other motorsport series, because they have the makings to do something here, but they've never really fully made that push, with the exception of Indy 500. Most people don't even know that there's an IndyCar championship. They're not paying attention for the whole season. Maybe this could be a little something to get some money into the sport and thus make the sport a little bit more pizzazz.
Yeah, that's what IndyCar needs, some pizzazz. Hopefully this works out. This is a big gamble. Like, I think if this doesn't go well, this might be the end of the only thing that keeps me going. So, shout out to IndyCar. Okay.
Yeah, shout out. I'm so glad you guys are playing games with our feelings and our Thank you. Hope you guys figured this out.
I also wanted to add that this charter system is going to last through 2031, so it's going to be around for a hot minute.
That's so long.
When I first heard 2031, I was like, "That's 14 years from now," and then no, it's not.
Yeah, that's not how math works, unfortunately. But, like, that's insane. That's an insanely long time.
What a commitment. If there's one thing that F1 and IndyCar does really well is committing long-term to things that just might not work out without testing them first.
I love when they know it's not going to work out, but they already committed. So they're like, So, like, F1, for example, like, they made, like, the new regulations, and they're like, this might be a really bad idea. Can't wait till the next regulations. Like, they're already like, we're going to have to suffer through that one. Probably a little bit, but we'll figure it out in the end. Can't wait till we get to try again to make it not suck. Alrighty. Good luck. But they,
Very
I think
consistent.
that like, I feel for the drivers and like the teams and everybody who has to kind of just go into next year being like, hope this was the right move. We'll all figure it out in the end. But um, shout out IndyCar for making everything confusing. Love that for you guys. It used to be just
Shout out.
everybody showed up and raced. Now it's a little confusing.
It used to just be about the racing. It was just about cars on track. And now we got agreements, we got systems, we got charters.
Now we got lawyers. Why
There's
did they bring lawyers into it?
What's the law got to do with my race cars?
The law? Oh, we'll get more to the law later on.
Oh, I can't wait.
But so that's the IndyCar charter system. Who knows? Who knows? Speaking of bringing the law into motor racing, guess who's going to court? Potentially
Oh my God. Who's going to court?
NASCAR. The owners of NASCAR, the France family.
The France
They
family?
actually
Oh my gosh.
they're beat. Could you imagine like what a flex it is to be like, yeah, we are being sued, but it is by Michael Jordan. So that's kind of cool. You know what I mean? Like of all the people that
Crazy.
get sued by like Michael Jordan, definitely up there with like that's kind of sick.
I feel like I wouldn't want to piss off Michael Jordan, even outside of like a basketball context. Like imagine
Yeah.
getting sued by Michael Jordan for like cars. That's crazy. I'm so happy for them. What a moment.
Love that. So if you don't know, I didn't actually know this until this year. Michael Jordan owns a NASCAR team along with Denny Hamlin. It's called 2311. And they are currently going through the process of suing NASCAR for antitrust. And you might go, antitrust, that sounds familiar. It is a big deal in motorsport this year because that's also an antitrust investigation is what's going on with Andretti and F1, Liberty Media. Who would have known that in order to get down and dirty with the motorsport drama, it did require a law school education? Not me. Not me. Here's the tea. Okay. They're basically saying that NASCAR has created for themselves an uncompetitive environment and created basically a monopoly over stock car racing. And at first I was like, well, duh, they're like the biggest stock car race. But I was actually a little surprised about some of the stuff that NASCAR has done to kind of create like an uncompetitive environment. I'm not going to pretend to say that this lawsuit will be good or bad for NASCAR because I don't know ish about ish, okay? But I was a little surprised by some of this. And so this might be surprising to you. You might already know this. But did you know that NASCAR bought all of the tracks that they use so that no other series can use those tracks? Some of them are pretty historic tracks. Some of them are tracks that were previously used for lots of different type of racing, including NASCAR. But now NASCAR owns them, so they are NASCAR tracks. They, I believe, have to then obviously pay for like all the maintenance and stuff like that of these tracks that can be very expensive. But it is kind of crazy that they have a now ownership of all of these venues for racing because that does impact the growth of other series, making it so NASCAR is basically got like exclusivity across the country for like some of these ovals that they use and stuff. That's insane.
I mean,
a little bit.
It even affects IndyCar, which is the issue we had up at the Iowa Speedway, which is owned by NASCAR. They repaved it for NASCAR, and then it ended up one of the worst races of the IndyCar season because it was not an IndyCar track anymore. So
yeah,
NASCAR really has.
That's a little crazy. That's a little crazy. And you're affecting MJ in her sweet Iowa home. Why would you guys do that?
How dare you? I get one thing a year, and it was easily the worst race ever. So NASCAR, I am now MJ23. I'm also suing NASCAR for that.
Yeah, she's on the
reason
lawsuit
specifically.
Well, didn't like
I'm in
Post
there.
Malone show up? Wasn't Post Malone at the Iowa race
Yeah, that
though?
was cool. NASCAR didn't take that away from us.
NASCAR, you can never take away Post Malone from us. You could try. You can try, but not never succeed.
Never. You can have Pitbull.
Oh, period. Wow, that was harsh. Do you have something against Pitbull?
Pitbull released a NASCAR album this year.
What?
Sorry, did you not know that? Are you a fake Pitbull and or NASCAR fan?
What the fuck does Pitbull have to do with NASCAR? Is he a fan too? Is it him and Michael Jordan?
He has like a huge part in NASCAR. They sell shirts that's like, cause you know like the Raise Hell, Praise Dale, but it says like, cause you know his name is Dale too. Yeah.
Yeah.
This
Love
was like
that.
a whole thing for like months. I feel like I didn't talk about this enough, maybe.
Yeah, I feel like we didn't cover this nearly enough. Had I known Pitbull was so in on NASCAR, I would have gotten in way sooner. Way sooner, had I known. Mistakes. We'll learn from them. We'll learn from them someday. Damn, I need to listen. What's it called? Where can I look up this Pitbull album?
It's on Spotify. It's one of his most recent releases.
Are the songs like about cars?
Yep. There's one with well, there's also one with Dolly Parton that's about being like a proud woman.
Ah.
You should check it out.
Yeah, I'll tune in. I'm interested.
Yeah.
I'm interested in what Pitbull knows about being a proud woman. He knows what it's like.
I'm sorry for
Wait, are you saying is it problematic? Is it problematic?
It's not good. I don't know if it's problematic, but I don't know. Okay, anyways.
Don't anyways me. I'm talking about Pitbull.
I know. All of a sudden, this has become like a Pitbull podcast. Hey.
Yeah. Well,
there's a niche
we'll
out there
keep it in the back. Yeah, we'll keep it in the back of our mind. If we ever decide this motorsport thing doesn't work out, we can make a hard turn to Pitbull. They also... I'm trying to teach people law, MJ. Stop bringing up Pitbull. No. They also bought ARCA, ARCA, for those that love to spell out there. I don't know what that was about. So. They also bought ARCA, which is a competitive series that is now no longer a viable track to race outside of NASCAR. So I feel like this is kind of a point that they put in the lawsuit to solidify that NASCAR has like a monopoly because they buy out other forms of racing, kind of put them under the NASCAR umbrella. So even if you don't like the rules of NASCAR and you don't want to play by NASCAR's rules, you still actually do because there's no other racing to do out there other than NASCAR in this category. That's what the lawsuit is alleging, whether you agree with that or not. And lastly, this is the part that I actually was like, no, that's a little insane, actually. That's a little crazy. The cars and the parts that the teams are buying are not actually owned by the teams. They're owned by NASCAR. So you cannot use these to be raced in other series. It's not actually your car. It's still kind of a property of NASCAR, even though it's expected that teams are the ones paying for these cars and paying for the parts and fixing them and taking them from race to race and all this stuff. It's not like NASCAR is doing that for them and giving them a car that's already paid for. The teams have to pay for that. In fact, I think in the lawsuit, it gives a rough amount of $18 million a year, not including the driver's salaries, to just update and keep up with these cars and to buy the cars and to have the mechanics for the cars and all this stuff. NASCAR isn't paying for any of that, yet it's still technically kind of their car. That's a little crazy.
That doesn't make any sense to me, though, because then how can it be competitive if you're all buying from the same source? Is that what you're saying? Like, they're all buying their car parts from NASCAR? NASCAR owns it?
I don't think NASCAR owns it, but NASCAR decides where they can buy their parts from under, you know what I mean? And then, like, technically, I think that they are basically kind of saying because the NASCAR cars are built under these rules that NASCAR has created to make the cars like a spec series sort of vibe, they are kind of like NASCAR's property, like IP, like intellectual. They're NASCAR built cars. You can't take that car then and go race them somewhere else because that's a NASCAR car. They own it.
Interesting. That's very interesting. I wonder if that applies for like the data they get from it too. Like if you could apply, because there's like some teams that have, like Penske, for example, they have a team in NASCAR but also in IndyCar. Yeah. I wonder if they're no longer allowed to like take any information on the tracks from like one series to another.
That is interesting. I am curious. Like what? So I will say, first of all, if I got any of this wrong, feel free to cyberbully me, but also I got a lot of this information from people that seem to know what they're talking about. No, they can cyberbully me. I don't mind. That's fine.
No. We're not opening the door for cyberbullying.
I don't cyberbully MJ, okay? Just me.
I'm
okay?
sensitive. Okay. That's fine then.
Yeah. A big source of a lot of this information I got is from another podcast that you should listen to after you're done listening to this podcast. Okay, if you leave this podcast to listen to that podcast, I'm going to be really sad. Okay, it's called The Teardown, and they go through a lot of the lawsuit, and I found it really interesting. And they're the ones that use the phrase like "you cannot race this car" in other series. It made me wonder: isn't there like didn't they have like a NASCAR car race at like Le Mans or something like that?
Not this last Le Mans, but the Le Mans before that. The Garage 56 if it's car. Like, Jensen Button drove it.
I wonder if like something like that is something like that allowed. I'm not sure. And I don't know if anybody's really sure. But I think a big part of this lawsuit is that the teams are putting up tons and tons of money. They are not seeing a lot of that money coming back to them. And they're trying to find a way to negotiate and like have some more power in negotiation. And I believe that this lawsuit is part of that, because basically the two options now are they can go forward with the lawsuit in court. They'll have to do discovery. NASCAR will have to open up the books, and they will have to truly come to terms with the numbers that NASCAR is making versus the numbers that these teams are seeing. Or they could settle outside of the court, never have to do all of that. But it gives Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan and, you know, other teams more bargaining power in that process. So I'm curious to see how it turns out. But I don't know. I think that I'm probably always going to be on the side of the teams and the drivers.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be a tough ask for me to be on the side of NASCAR.
Yeah, the monopoly. I would never cheer for the monopoly.
Yeah, we're talking about like millionaires versus billionaires here. I'm probably going to go with the millionaires. I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that they're perfect, but, like, I'm probably going to be on their side more than I will be on the NASCAR side. I mean, I am kind of curious, though, like, how much money they truly make from, like, the TV deals and stuff like that, and how much of it is actually making its way back to the teams. Because, ultimately, if the teams cannot sustain what they're doing, if they're not making enough money to make it worth putting up all of this effort and millions of dollars to get a car out on track, then NASCAR will cease to exist. So I'm probably going to be on their side. But of course people hate like Denny Hamlin. So they're like, boo, boo, Denny. Why'd you ruin everything? Boo, I hate you. And Michael Jordan. You guys suck. Which I think is an interesting take. Yeah, that's what they're saying,
People who
MJ.
are going against... I totally believe you. People going against the lawsuit just because they're like, well, if it was anyone else besides Denny. It's like, whoa, that's actually... Yeah. That's insane of you. That's crazy.
That's a little crazy. And people are also saying that because 2311 is a newer team in NASCAR, they're like, well, everything was fine before... Why now is it such a big deal? And it's like, well, because they're renegotiating their new
contract, new charter system.
So, like,
that's why
it's like
things have changed.
That's why it's a problem now. Yeah, actually, things have changed. And also, I heard that in the charter, before they signed it, there was a thing that says if you sign this charter, you actually cannot sue us for antitrust, which is a weird thing to put in somewhere.
Crazy.
Unless you think you're going to get sued for antitrust.
Committing antitrust. That's exactly what I would say.
It's kind of like when those people tried to sue Disney, and then they were like, well, I thought you guys liked Disney. You guys have Disney Plus. It's like,
oh, yeah.
I'm sorry?
You can't sue us. You pay for Disney Plus. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys actually had no issue with it when you got your Disney Plus subscription. It's like, why would you put that in the contract unless you thought you were doing something kind of fucked up? What is wrong with you people?
NASCAR.
Come on. But I also love like drama, right? So part of me, I love like all these antitrust lawsuits because I'm like, yeah, let's open it up. Let's unveil what goes on behind the curtain. I mean, I felt the same way about the Andretti thing. I was like, yeah, I want to know what the hell F1 was talking about with the Andretti thing, because the best way to know is through discovery. Open it up. I want to read. I want to see the emails. I want to see the books.
I have to believe that NASCAR is not going to want to go to discovery. Like, as much as I'm like, they think that they can win this lawsuit, I think the risk of, not that I think that they should win this lawsuit. That's not what I'm saying. I think NASCAR thinks they can win this lawsuit.
Yeah,
I think the France family thinks they
you
can.
You think that they think that? I mean, the
I
lawyer
think
that
they
they
think
have
they
doing.
can.
Okay,
I
so
think
all of you
NASCAR
guys...
thinks they can win.
What? Then
I
they're
think NASCAR
idiots.
thinks that they're what?
Then they're idiots.
Yeah. Yes. Correct.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All
I
right.
think,
All right.
I
Word.
fully think they're like, we're making a competitive series. We are the top of the top. I think that they fully believe that they can win, but I do think that, I mean, my God, they would have to be so stupid to want to risk going through Discovery, even if they thought they could win the lawsuit.
It would not be a good idea. So if you guys also didn't know, the lawyer that is representing 2311 is this lawyer is, he's got a Wikipedia page full of good stuff, okay? From what I understand, he is the reason for like the free agency rules. He is also the reason for equal pay for, I believe, the U.S. national women's soccer team, ? He is like, I think he represented Tom Brady in Deflategate. Let's just say this guy has had his little paws in lots of momentous sports decisions. I do not think you would hire a man like that and start this lawsuit if you didn't think you could win it. And Michael Jordan seems like a very savvy businessman. He seems like he knows what's up. And so if I was NASCAR, I would be shaking in my motherfucking boots, okay? I would not think I was going to win this. I would secede immediately. I would be like, you win. I'm so sorry. I'll give you anything you want, Denny Hamlin. I'll give you anything you want. What do you want, Denny? And like the fact that they haven't responded to this lawsuit makes me think that there is some conversations going on behind closed doors where they're like, I'm so sorry. We fucked up for sure. What do you guys want? What do y'all want? We'll give it. I don't know. But that's my law school education for today. And if you made it this far in the podcast, hopefully, did you learn something? If you learned something, drop it below in the comments. Did you know you can comment on podcasts on Spotify? I didn't know that.
I did not know that.
I'm going to be commenting.
I'm going to start commenting on her.
These two gals have some insightful things to say.
Wow, so good.
Wow.
Period.
Wow, so good. But just as a little point of like, somebody asked about the playoff system. We will say there is a lot of information out there if you want a full rundown of it. But I think you could maybe quickly give us a little something about the playoff system.
That's exactly what I'll do. A little something. It's not as confusing. I think NASCAR suffers from IndyCar syndrome, which is like we understand how it works, kind of, but you guys have to figure it out on your own. And I love that.
Yeah. They get you thinking.
So,
they get the gears turning in your head.
For sure. And
love
that is so nice of them. It's like crowd participation. It's actually not that complicated. I just think they're bad at explaining it, and I think also maybe I'm just bad at understanding it. But so we are already into the playoffs. We're in round 2. Tomorrow at Talladega will be race 2. Correct? Okay, cool.
Correct.
But so the way that you get into the playoffs is during the regular season, there are championship points. So those are the points that you get from like the place that you finish a race in. So there are 40 entries per race. 1 through 40, the points go 40 to 1. First place gets 40 points, last place gets 1 point. Okay? Very simple. But then also playoff points are awarded during the regular season as well. So that's kind of, I think, where the confusion comes from. But to win playoff points, you can receive 1 playoff point for winning a stage, because if I'm explaining this to you and you've never seen a NASCAR race before, there are stages in NASCAR races. There are usually stage 1, stage 2, and then just the rest of the race. It's just like little intervals of races.
Yeah,
so,
it's at certain lap times, or certain lap numbers. It's like, this is the end of stage 1. If you're in the lead at the end of this lap, then that means you have won stage 1.
Yeah, absolutely. So, period. You receive 1 playoff point for winning a stage, 5 playoff points for winning a race and 15 playoff points for winning the regular season, like, championship. So Tyler Reddick got 15 playoff points for winning.
Love Tyler Reddick, by the way.
We love Tyler Reddick. There's also and you've probably heard the if you win, you're in. So basically winning a race during the regular season, it likely, unless there are more than 16
good boost.
Yeah, unless there are more than 16 race winners in a season, which didn't happen this year, you're making it to playoffs. And then playoffs, like the format of playoffs, it is split into 4 different rounds. Is that what you would call them, I guess?
It's
so
like,
you know, round
picture
of 16.
like... Yeah, picture like a bracket, you know what I mean? You start with like a bunch of people, and then after each set of 3 races in the playoffs, it's going to narrow it down to less and less people until you get to a final 4, correct?
Yep. So, yeah, so you start with the round of 16, and that is races 1, 2, and 3. And then you go to the round of 12, because on the 3rd race, you don't have enough points, you're out.
You got cut.
But, okay, this is actually an important note, because when I first started watching the playoffs, I didn't realize this, and I should have. And we've talked about this before. All the cars race. All the championship cars race. Okay, so if you're tuning in and you're like, MJ said there should be 12 cars here, that's more
There's
than 12
a lot more
cars.
than 12. Yeah,
they're all out there. But they have, like, different colors on them so that you know who's playoff. Whatever. I just thought that was an important note. So then it goes from round of 16 to round of 12. And that is races 4, 5, and 6. And then it goes to the round of 8. And that is 7, 8, and 9. And then the championship 4 is decided in one final race.
And
for what reason?
Correct me. Well, just to make things interesting and fun and confusing.
I guess so.
But correct me if I'm wrong. At the beginning of each round, so when you go from 16 to 12, what did you just say?
12.
Yeah, 16 to 12, they're starting over. What they did in that first 3 races in the round of 16 is not going to affect them in the round of 12. Ish?
Yes and no. You
so
do
the
get
points put in a seed, right?
So the points restart. This was the part that I found most confusing. The points reset, but you still keep a certain amount of points if you are a playoff driver.
Yeah.
So the points will reset for everybody. You keep your playoff points, but then you, for example, a non-playoff car could have like 600 points right now. But then a playoff car who made it through the first round of 16, or made it to the first round of 16, was a playoff car, didn't make it to the round of 12, will have a baseline of 2,000 points with their playoff points and then the points they accumulate throughout the playoffs tacked on. I feel like that's really hard to visualize, but does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. It is silly, but it makes sense. And that's not your fault, MJ. I mean, you didn't make it.
That's the France family for you. But then, so
they would have lawsuit. Can we just tack on to the end of the lawsuit? Y'all made shit confusing.
So you would see those cars who made it to the first round, didn't make it to the second round with 2,000. But then the cars who with 2,000 as their baseline, and then obviously the points accumulate as they continue through the playoffs. But then the cars that made it to the round of 12, so they made it to the second round, they'll be at 3,000, and then the points that they accumulate. And the reason they do this is so there is still competition as the playoffs go on, even if they've been eliminated, to decide 5th through 16th of the playoffs.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, that makes sense. And another important distinction is that if you are not in the playoffs or you have been eliminated, you can still win. You can still win.
Yes.
And you still want to win. You still want to win because it is still cool to win, a big NASCAR Cup Series race. It's still cool, including this last week in Kansas. Somebody won that wasn't in the playoffs.
Ross Chastain. Oh my God. I was like, I was going to say Chris Buescher, and it was not Chris Buescher. It was Ross Chastain.
Otherwise known as like the watermelon guy.
The watermelon man. That kind of wraps up the playoff.
Was that
confusing? Yeah, so that's
No, it was
the
a
gist
little.
of it.
It's a little confusing, but it's
It
not
is
your fault that it's
confusing
confusing.
inherently. I know. I just wish I could bridge the gap between the France family and the people.
She's out here
Make it less confusing.
liaisoning. She's
That's my goal.
liaisoning that information to us noobs in the NASCAR
yes, you
world.
can absolutely win if you are not a playoff driver. Last weekend, Ross Chastain won. I personally am a big fan of Ross Chastain. He is a...
Yeah.
Okay, Ross, if you're listening, I apologize if I'm incorrect in these numbers.
If Ross is listening, hey,
hi Ross,
come on the show, bud.
Oh my gosh,
Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Oh my god, you're like a NASCAR driver. That's so crazy. Anyways, continue. Numbers.
He is a 7th or 8th generation watermelon farmer.
Yeah, I think he's an 8th generation watermelon farmer.
8th generation. Well, 7th, 8th. There's a lot of contingency there.
I mean, that's a whole generation.
Exactly. That's a good
important.
Point. If you've seen his little pit stall, you know, like, I think they call him a lollipop in F1. Do you know what I'm talking about?
The little signs. Yeah, the little
say,
sign. Hey, yo, come over here.
Yeah, his little sign is a watermelon. Have you seen? It's
cute. he seems like a cool guy. He seems very like ideal for the world of NASCAR in the way of like a lot of people really like him because he is like a watermelon farmer. He's a really chill guy. It seems like he like is a rowdy competitor and he like wants to win, but he is like still like a down to earth like farmer. You know, he really appeals well to the NASCAR audience. But when he wins, he celebrates by smashing a watermelon. Like he stands on the top of his car and he smashes the watermelon on the ground. And I have to say, I have to give credit where credit is due. I don't think there's a better celebration in motorsport.
No, I think that's it. I think
that's it.
In the he has like a designated watermelon guy who knows. You should watch the interview with him. It's really funny. He knows he's like I'm not allowed to leave the trailer. I'm not allowed to leave the trailer until I know he's winning. And he sprints with a watermelon, carrying it across the track in his arms to be able to complete this celebration. And I don't know. It just feels like a win for all of us when Watermelon Man wins.
But like I have to wonder, if you were celebrating, what would you smash?
Does it have to be a fruit? Could it just be anything?
Yeah. But you gotta smash it.
That's kind of hard. Maybe like, who is the DJ who like smashes cakes in people's face? Steve Aoki?
Maybe Steve Aoki.
Like a full
you want to smash a cake?
Sheet cake.
Okay.
Just straight to the pavement.
Yeah. I really think I would take a page out of Colton Herta's book. I would want to smash a guitar. They'd be like, why? Why do you have a guitar? And I'd be like, fuck. I mean, because I'm smashing it. Like, that's cool. And they'd be like, you don't play guitar. And I'd be like, fair. Ever heard of just looking cool? Ever thought of that? I mean, like, I'm a rock star. Deal with it. I feel bad for whoever's cleaning up the watermelon, though.
That's NASCAR's job. It's their track.
Yeah, actually, you know what? I think we've already discovered that I don't give a shit about those billionaires. Yeah, clean up the watermelon. Clean it up because he won. He's the best. He also was like, they were like, how do you celebrate your win? And he was like, I drink Busch Light.
Mm-hmm.
And I smash watermelons. He's like, I'm not driving after this, so I just get drunk on Busch Light. And I was like, man of the people right there. Man of the people.
You gotta respect
He's out here doing...
You gotta respect
it. He's out here being relatable king. But if you're not watching NASCAR, you're missing out. And it's the only racing going on this week. So you better be tuning in. But you know who is for sure probably tuning in? Oscar Piastri. Why is that, MJ?
Oscar Piastri likes NASCAR. We recently found out. Because the McLaren did it again. Their little... I called it the McLaren... It's like a McLaren love triangle, okay?
Yeah.
All three of their series, or three of their main series, I guess, IndyCar, NASCAR, F1, they all kind of collaborate. And there's discussions of Kyle Larson doing an F1 test, I think next year? I don't know. In the future. And Zach Brown was talking about it and talking about the possibility of that happening. And he was talking about how apparently Oscar came knocking on his door and was like, hey, you know, if it's an option, I would love to drive a NASCAR for a practice. So we may see another, and it has happened before, the F1 NASCAR swap, like Lewis Hamilton swapped with, I'm not going to be able to remember right now. Was it?
Lewis Hamilton swapped with somebody.
Tony Stewart. Was it Tony Stewart?
Oh!
I think it was Tony Stewart. Huh, we
Sure.
did it.
Haha.
But I don't know. I love that for them. And like watching Kevin Magnussen in a NASCAR car, I think it's just fun. It's like,
Yeah.
it's good for everybody.
Of all of the drivers, though, that I think could someday, like, if you lived in a hypothetical world where, like, F1 drivers went to NASCAR to make a career, Oscar would be the last choice for me. So that's why I found this so surprising. Could you imagine, like, I feel like Oscar doesn't put around with those games, okay? Like, if everybody was crashing on every restart, Oscar would be like, come on, guys. We're not even driving. Why are we crashing again? He would just not have any of that shit. If somebody ran him up, he's scraping the wall, he'd be like, what is wrong with you people? If we all just operate the vehicles straight ahead and stop worrying about smacking each other, we could go so much faster. And they'd be like, Oscar, that's not the game here. That's not the case, because rubbing is racing. I don't think Oscar would play with those games, in my opinion.
I think Oscar would do fine. I think the thought of trying to get Lando into a NASCAR,
Oh.
I think he would take it as an insult. And I mean that as an insult.
I don't think he would vibe with NASCAR either. I think most F1 drivers wouldn't. I do think, like, of the F1 drivers I think would vibe with NASCAR, Kevin Magnussen, obviously up there.
He did.
I think Max would get down with anything with, like, four wheels and a brake and a gas pedal. I don't think it takes much to make Max happy when it comes to racing. And then
Lewis loved it. I would like to point that out.
Yeah. I
Maybe
could see
Valtteri?
Fernando. Oh, Valtteri. Yeah. I could see Valtteri getting down with it. I think Fernando could also get down with it. I think Fernando, like, he would, like, just think it's, like, super fun, like, for shits and giggles. Like, people would try to get super competitive with him, and he'd be like, no, this is just a blast. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just having a good time. I don't know. I feel like, yeah, those are, I think maybe it's like the OG racers on the grid right now. They would get down with it. Some of this new blood, I don't think they would play with the NASCAR stuff. But apparently Oscar's down. So shout out Oscar. If you ever want to come talk about your love for NASCAR, Oscar, we would love to have you on the Lapstown podcast. Right, MJ?
It's an open invitation. Let's go.
That's an open invitation.
Anyone who wants to drive a NASCAR. We're hosting. Literally anyone.
Speaking of Valtteri, I saw an interesting stat this week, which is that if Zhou Guanyu and Valtteri Bottas don't get a seat this year, that means 10 of the 11 drivers that have most recently drove for this Sauber, Alfa Romeo, Stake, Kick, F1 conglomeration, whatever, they have ended their careers there. The only exception being Charles Leclerc. Everybody else, they have raced for this team, and then they have retired or gotten from the sport. I think that is a crazy stat. I think that makes it so this team is almost like a career graveyard. Maybe this is why Carlos said no. And now I'm scared because I'm like, what? No, Nico. What does this mean for Nico? But I'm now like, who on earth would want to take this second seat? This is a career graveyard.
Yeah, it would have to be someone who doesn't have a career.
Oh,
maybe Franco.
Damn. No, don't do that to my boy Franco.
He does.
See, that's the
he
thing.
does not have a career after this year, so I think
know.
it would make perfect sense for him to go there. But I also think maybe part of the issue is the fact that they just don't keep drivers long enough to be able to. Well, no, because Kevin has been there. No, not Kevin. Valtteri has been there for, well, I guess only a few years, right? 3?
Maybe 2, 3. However long George has been at Mercedes. So like 3 years? 4 years?
Yeah.
Fuck it. 5,
I guess that
6,
would be
7?
long enough to be able to develop with a driver, though. Like, develop your car with a driver.
Yeah.
So maybe the team is really just shit.
I think the team is really that shit because Valtteri has been saying like, oh, I'm driving better now than I've ever drove before. You just can't tell because the car is fucking shit.
Right.
That's insane. So now I'm like, that's why there's never going to be somebody that fills that second seat. Because now everybody's starting to realize if I go there, I may go nowhere else. And now I'm like so grateful. You'll never hear me talking shit again about Williams. Thank you, Williams, for signing Carlos. I love you, James Vowles. I'm so sorry for all the shit I talked. I take it all back.
I'm not a part of that, what she's saying. I double down on all the shit I've talked.
Yeah, she means all the shit she talked. But like now I'm like, oh my gosh. What is Audi gonna do? This team is a fucking hellhole. Sorry for my language, but we're an explicit podcast. This is a fucking hellhole.
What can they do? I mean, unless they like gut it and completely start over. And I just think it's funny that we have this team we're dragging along a graveyard, and then we're worried about Andretti not being competitive.
Dude, I'm sorry. This car has got to be one of the worst cars in modern F1 history. Like, do you realize, like, it is actually insane how far behind Zhou and Bottas are. Insane numbies of how many seconds they are behind their closest competitors. It actually couldn't probably be more shit.
No. And continue to start races? No. Just the fact that they're starting races is miraculous.
Yeah, every time that car turns on, they're like, whew, oh, thank God. We were a little worried. We really thought that, yeah, there's a chance they wouldn't even make it to the grid, but we're good. We're good. They can do a formation lap without breaking down. Whew.
The bare minimum.
Spooky.
We are going to have to retire them, though, at lap 27. But at least we got those first 26 in.
And we tried. Who do you think... Should I ask this? You might get canceled. I don't care. I'll say it. Who do you want to go to this team? Who do you want to put in the career graveyard?
Who do I want to put in the career graveyard?
Yeah, who do you want them to be like, this is your last go?
Or are you asking who I want to be at stake? Who do I want to be done? I'll tell you right now.
Say it. You won't.
I think the person who I actually want to go to stake is Valtteri.
Okay. Who do you want to go to the career graveyard? Don't avoid the question.
I gotta be honest, he already went to the career graveyard.
Period.
Who I would have put there.
No further mention necessary. I think that I want Valtteri to both go to stake and also maybe go to the career graveyard. Only because like, I think that Valtteri Bottas got done dirty by the fact of, like, he is an amazing driver. I think he's like a 10-time race winner. I think he was amazing at Mercedes. I think that I will sing his praises long after he's gone from the sport. I do think, however, he is reaching the point where it's like, I don't know where his career is going to grow from here. He's not going to go back to a top team. And he is, I think, like 35. I think he kind of has a vibe of like he's maybe over all of the F1 stuff. He would be fine without it. I think it would be okay if he does one more year at stake and then they bring in somebody for Audi. Now, I do think a Nico and Valtteri lineup, that's a very Haas lineup in my mind. We're talking about two older DILFs. That's a very Haas lineup in my mind.
Blonde too.
Blonde DILFs. That's Haas's main gig. So Haas, be spooked. They're coming for your gig, girly. Be scared. But yeah, I think I'm okay if it's maybe last year for Valtteri. Next year.
And I think you're absolutely correct. He will be fine. If he wants to continue racing, he can race in a different series. I have total faith in him.
Yeah.
If he wants to become a professional bicyclist, he loves it. He adores it. I don't know whether he's hyper fixating on it or whether
he takes that shit serious.
So seriously. And I have to admire it.
Yeah. Live your dream, buddy. Cycle off into the sunset. I have heard, obviously, like, who would you want as far as like maybe next year or the year after when they become Audi. I've heard Franco Colapinto thrown around. I actually have decided I maybe don't want that for Franco. I think he would be better off sitting out for a year as a reserve driver at Williams than he would be going to a team where he's ass, okay? Because I think that there's like a little bit of hype built up around him. I think that hype can survive for a year without him driving, and he could be like a Liam Lawson, where we're like, oh my God, get this boy back in a car. Like, I want to see him race so bad. Whereas if he is racing every weekend, but he's in 20th place, we will forget how sick he is, how much he was awesome this year.
I agree.
Do you know what I'm
saying? The recency bias situation, where it's like, if the last thing I know about Franco was him dive bombing Alex Albon, I'm going to want him in a seat in a couple years. But if he's retiring at lap 27, having a 30-minute pit stop, just in the stake
vibes
in general.
Yeah, I hate it.
Yeah, if he's just dealing with the stake kick vibes, I'm not going to want him. I'm not going to want him over anyone else.
And then there's also some people talking about Theo Pourchaire. Pourchaire? Fuck. I can't. Is it French? Is it a French last name?
Pourchaire. Yeah.
Pourchaire. Can't make that sound. Okay? I'm too American for that. But I think that, fuck it, give it to him. Sure. He's been sitting around for a while.
No.
You don't like him?
No.
You don't like him?
I love him. I don't want him to go to the graveyard.
Okay, well, right now he's kind of in the graveyard, MJ. He's not doing anything. Not.
He's on the rotating roster for the number 6 of Arrow McLaren. You're forgetting about that. That's an important spot to be in.
He's like the least loved of the rotating roster. He's like the one that Zach Brown is like, fuck you the most to. He fired him and then brought him back.
He's the fan favorite.
That's not true. The fan favorite is David Lucas. The fan favorite is David Lucas.
I forget that he was even there. I 100% forgot he was even there.
I never left.
He never drove the car.
David. I was there. I never left, MJ. I never left. But he is kind of in the graveyard right now. I mean, he does race in other series and stuff like that. What I'm saying is that he is an F2 champion. He is a good driver, presumably. He is, I believe, Stakes reserve driver. So, like, what are we doing here? Like, if he should be the next in line, most obviously. But I don't think that they're going to even put anybody new in it. I think they're just going to keep Bottas in it. And they're going to be like, fuck it. We'll just leave it for Audi to figure out. Yeah. And then they're going to peace out. But, I hate Stake, and their entire presence on the grid makes me mad. So I cannot wait for it to be Audi. And maybe they actually do something interesting and of worth. Thoughts?
Daddy.
MJ's yet to be convinced.
Yeah, I'm not convinced. It's the same people. It's just a different. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I don't know if, and I just think it's an interesting choice to have Nico, to choose Nico to be like, we want to make sure to snag Nico.
I'm sorry.
Crazy move. Crazy.
You should
move
always.
If you're trying to.
What? You should always be looking to snag Nico. You should always be looking to snag Nico, MJ. He is the diamond of the season right next to Carlos, okay? He is a blonde baddie who be driving that Haas to P6. He is Nico Hülkenberg. Put some respect on his name, MJ. And he's German, so they wanted him because he was German. Which, I don't know, that seems a little weird. I'm not going to lie.
Interesting choice.
Interesting.
I guess we'll see how it goes.
So I think that is everything to cover this week. I'm sorry if you didn't want to learn that much, but hopefully you're walking away from this being like, you know what, my brain got a little bigger. There's some ridges added to my brain. I'm no longer smooth brain. There was not much racing going on this week, so it was a lot of off-track drama. But MJ, you did a wonderful job putting all that information together. I feel enriched with knowledge, so thank you for that. Anytime. She's just gonna smile.
I'm always
and nod. Yeah,
I know.
This is an audio
I did my
format.
Best. I did my best.
And if you are still listening and you haven't already, Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever, so you can be the first to know when our new episodes come out. Go ahead and leave us a little 5-star review. It really helps. And thank you already to the people that have done that. I see you. Okay? Thank you for doing that. And yeah, big hearts up for the people that left us 5-star reviews. If you want to leave us a 4-star review,
that's fine.
Tough, but I'll take it. We'll take it. Yeah. We're not picky. If you're not following us on TikTok and Instagram, we also put our videos on YouTube. If you want to like just put us up on your TV and do some chores around the house, we can chit chat on your TV on YouTube if that's what you want. Me and MJ do that all the time to podcasts. So we're on YouTube as well now. Yeah. And I think that's it for Laps Down episode 2. Is that it for you, MJ? Nothing to add?
Nothing to add.
I mean, you've already done so much. Well, on that note, goodbye, everyone. Say bye, MJ.
Bye.